Hi, everybody online. Um, we're going to get started. Thanks so much for being patient with us while we figured out some of the technical issues. My name is Nicholas O'Brien. I'm going to be hosting the session for Rose. It's a delight to be here, and thank you all for being here. I'm not going to give much preamble. I'm just going to introduce Rose in the talk, and she'll get started. So today's talk is writing absorbing short stories for short attention spans by Shelby Moledina and Rose Behar. And I'm going to pass it over to Rose, and they will get started. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nick. Nick is a wonderful narrative storyteller in his own right, and you should check out his games. So thank you for coming. Thank you for being patient. Today, we're looking into the world of writing stories that are really engaging for mediums where people tend to nope out as quickly as possible. So mainly very casual mobile games, which is what I've worked in. And Shelby has worked in short form video content as well. So things like TikTok and stuff like that. So this is my first hideous slide. This is sort of somewhat what an average reader's brain might look like before they interact with your writing, except probably more horrors. And, I just kind of kept it light. So how do you compete in a world where there's a lot of things demanding your attention on your screen at any time, but you want to tell a story that forces people to come back because they're so invested in it? The answer is just tell a great story like you always have, but in bite-sized chunks. And we're going to go through how to do that. So I'm Rose. I have wrote on multiple mobile games, Longleaf Valley, Cells to Singularity, Venue, Ashe Cove. I also publish narrative news. If anybody's interested, it is a narrative design resources newsletter that is free on Substack. And together I collaborated with Shelby on Ashe Cove. And Shelby is awesome. She has been a game director, a co-founder of Double Loop, which created Ashe Cove, and has 30 plus games shipped, which is incredible, in this industry. So we're going to start off with how mobile and short form video is similar. Yeah, you guys might have seen this before, right? Ads for it, or maybe you've even played it. The tagline, I think the question is, what is grandma hiding? That's such a good tagline. I really have to give it up to them. They never reveal what grandma is hiding, so that's kind of the downside, but it gets your attention. But yeah, mobile gaming, you get about 5 taps in 10 seconds to go from opening the app to gameplay. And so you really have to be incredibly judicious, especially right at the beginning of your game, in how you're going to hook people in. And as much as this is not a great example of overall storytelling, what is grandma hiding is a great example of a great hook. And then we've got short form video. So TikTok specifically, you get about 1 second before someone scrolls. How do you really grab somebody in that time? And Shelby will be going into that further. Let me make sure I can do this. Yes, I'm doing it. Okay. So I want to tell you a little bit about Ashe Cove because that's where my examples are coming from. Ashe Cove is a supernatural mystery game. The mechanic itself is a merge mechanic. So I don't know if you guys have played this game, but it's a very kind of casual mechanic where you merge together 2 scissors and it becomes a ruler. And then when you get to a certain place, you get to play more of the story. And so you kind of get rewarded with the story. So hopefully the story is something that really draws people through. I'll show you a little bit of gameplay so you can see what it looks like. The sort of good thing about Ashe Cove is that we've done a lot of testing on it. So we know that the retention, so getting people in and keeping them in, is very high for mobile game statistics. And so this is why we know it's kind of working. Help. Okay, that was really loud. That was way too loud. Sorry, guys. But yeah, you can see here gameplay, investigate, find evidence, little kind of clips of dialogue. Okay, so I think that gives you a sense of what it looks like, just so you're not going in blind. Okay. I'm going to be one of those presenters that sucks at the technology. Okay. So the constraints and challenges of what we have here. So the quests, which you can also think of as scenes, are limited to 10 taps, so 10 lines of dialogue, and each line should never exceed 80 characters. So this is all guidelines we've established because we know that we have to keep them this short. Otherwise, people bounce. They don't want to see big blocks of text. They don't want to be tapping forever. So you got to get through your story in a very quick, snappy way. We also need the quest to interact with and inform the mechanics. And we need to sort of make it visually interesting. But the challenge here is that the genre we picked, paranormal investigation, it makes it hard to compete with like decoration games because it was harder to justify big, flashy environmental changes with every quest completion. But we were creative. On top of all that, we need to tell a good story, and a lot of elements go into that. So within those 10 lines that you have in a quest, you kind of need to think about every single one of the things that's up here. So we've got form, tone, character voice, and then we've got function, plot, and game mechanics. What do you guys think is the more important side of the board here, form or function? Anybody want to venture a thought? Yeah. Okay. So I disagree, kind of. Function is very important, but you, to engage people, need to hit the genre, tone, and the reference tone right out of the bat, right away, or else people are not going to stick around to pay any attention to your plot. So yes, you definitely need to have your plot planned out in your brain, but a lot of it is going to stay in your brain because you're going to mainly drip feed little pieces of information about the plot, but give them a lot of character and a lot of flavor to start out with. And also just ongoing, like people do not want to be sort of lectured at about this great plot that you've come up with. They want to have a little slice of fun between their game mechanics. And that usually means putting in lots of jokes, putting in lots of character work. Sometimes it's not jokes depending on the genre that it is. So for us, our genre is paranormal mystery, and it's also sort of mixed with a Gilmore Girls style like pithiness. And that is, fun. We all love Gilmore Girls. But for some, that might be instead the fun is the gore, or instead the fun is the heavy pathos between your characters. Make sure you're always remembering what it is that people love about this genre. So yeah, sometimes a kind of like an issue that I've had with some of the writers who are just starting out in this type of writing is that they will do an amazing job at telling you everything you need to know, plot-wise and game mechanics, and spelling everything out. And it is no fun to play at all. So my recommendation is to write free-flowing, write with tone and character voice very much in mind. And then after you've done that writing, go through and look at each of these sections and see if that quest or those lines are getting a pass on every one of those sections. TCPG, tone, character, function, plot, and game mechanics. So right now we'll look through some of our scripts for our investigations, and you guys can tell me, because I don't think these are perfect. You guys can tell me what you think some of the good parts are and what is not working so much. So this is the very first investigation of the game as it's written right now. I'll read it out to you. We've got Ivy, who is our private detective. And she comes up to this old house in the Pacific Northwest, and she said, "This is it, my old family home. After staying away so long, I never thought a case would bring me back. I usually keep detective work and family stuff separate, but when my sister sent me a mysterious note asking for help, and we get a little picture of her sister in the envelope, I dropped everything and came home." And then the purple stuff is getting into the mechanics. So then you have to merge to get a scissors to cut open the envelope. All right, so who wants to tell me, yeah, something that might not be working?
Love the first line that
Yeah,
that's something you should know, especially if you live there.
that's definitely something you should know. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I mean, true. What can I say? But what are there any things that you think are working despite the somewhat clunky exposition here? Yeah. Mhm.
And it also has this little, once in the envelope.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. So I think if we're going through this with our TCPG framework, I think we've got good exposition. So I think on plot, we're doing what we have to do. Game mechanics, we're doing what we have to do. For tone and character, we're saying a little bit about character, about Ivy, but tone is really not, what we want people to expect ultimately. There's going to be a lot more humor, all this sort of stuff, but it's also, you've only got so many lines. So we workshop these lines a million and one times. They will never be perfect. This is always going to be probably the hardest part of, especially commercial mobile game, where you're going to have to give a lot of exposition just to get stuff into get people into things. A one mobile game first line that always stuck with me, this is for another game, is I know my husband cheated on me and stole all my money, but why am I in jail? So I think we can, feel better that we're not doing that, right? But still, there is a lot to work on, and this was our first investigation. We got more into things. All right, so now we have here the second investigation. It's in a cemetery. Ivy has met a strange gentleman named Morley, and he's very preoccupied with who cut down these flowers that are illegal to cut in this town. It's a very strange town. Ivy, hold on, there's something here. Morley, is it an apology from the orchid murderer? Ivy, no, but it's the orchid murder weapon. Evidence, old serrated dagger. Who prunes orchids with an old dagger? Not me, that's for sure. Proper tool for the job, that's my motto. Who could have done this? My theory, those hoodlum grannies at the Historical Society. Thanks for the tip. If I can find the owner of this dagger, maybe it'll help me find Isabel. Okay, so let's look at this again. Let's think. What are some things that are working here? Oh, yeah, sorry. Oh, yes, I will, absolutely. Sorry. Anybody want to offer anything that you think is working better here than the last time? Yeah. So he answered, we got a better immediate sense of his character. And his character is really coming through here with Morley. Anything else that seems a little bit working like it's working better? Yeah.
Well, there's two characters now.
Two characters. Yeah, two characters is a lot better for great witty writing. It's much more difficult with one character, but there's a reason that we had to start out with one character. Well, we didn't have to, but what we found through all our trial and error is that introducing characters very slowly and allowing players to get to know them is much preferable to introducing like 5 characters at once and knowing none of them well enough. So it's been much, much better for us. We've got way better feedback when we slowly introduce new characters. So those are two good things, but is there stuff that's still anything that's not working so well? Any thoughts? It's working pretty well. Okay. What we like here is, yes, we're getting into the tone now. This is what you can expect. This is a fun banter. It's back and forth. Yes, it's a suspenseful mystery, but we're always going to take the path of lightheartedness if we can. And we're going to wait to build up for those really intense emotional moments, because I think, as most of you probably know, if you try to put a really intense emotional moment very early in a game, it'll totally fall flat because you don't know the characters yet. So we still have a long time of getting to know the characters, having them have this fun banter, and then maybe eventually we'll pull the rug out and we'll have one of them die or something, and that'll be really fun. But yeah, let's go on to the last investigation 3. This one is, I think, probably really shows us getting into the flow of things. So we have Ivy and her friend and investigation partner, Talia, together looking at around a secret room, room 13 in a fancy hotel. So we have, as you can see, different puzzle items and state changes and rewards related to the mechanics. So in this kind of secret room, there's a crystal ball, there's all sorts of just kind of different magical artifacts. Ivy, holy cow, so cool. Talia, cool. I'd probably go with insanely creepy, but to each their own. Maybe the brooch Isabel mentioned isn't here, but I'd sell for anything that ties this room to Isabel's. Unmelting ice, ash orchids, footprints, any of the above. The wardrobe, this is a next quest. Ivy, I bet this holds some secrets. Talia, mostly just a lot of questionable fashion choices. Ivy, hey, I have that sweater. Talia, really? I didn't mean to. Oh, look at that. Ivy, you're just trying to change the subject. No, seriously, look. And that sets up another kind of cliffhanger. So yeah, I think we're doing a lot better here. We're setting up cliffhangers. We're keeping the banter. The game mechanics are on point. And what is this? A little bit of recapping. Unmelting ice, ash orchids, footprints. So we got some recapping. It's never going to be probably completely organic, but this isn't too awkward, you know? They're talking to each other. It makes sense. And so we're getting recapping, which is very important in a game where you're not sure whether somebody has just played a couple of seconds ago or they played a year ago. So this is very helpful. And what else to mention? Yeah. Is there anything else that you guys think is better compared to the previous ones? Anything that stands out? Yeah, I think it just rolls along better. So here's some do's and don'ts. Lead with character, genre, and tone. As I said, don't lead with plot exposition, unnecessary details, and excuses for ludonarrative dissonance. Trust your audience to suspend disbelief where appropriate. This doesn't mean don't know your plot, but it does mean invest in knowing what the moment-to-moment experience should feel like first, especially if this is a big project that you're working on. I wouldn't invest like a year of world building before you nail the moment-to-moment experience of, do people like reading this? Which I know is kind of a brutal thing, because I've also done projects where I've invested years of world building. Those are going to be awesome. That is great. But if you're looking to really see if you can connect with your audience, try and just make sure, do I have the tone that people like? Do I have the hook that people like? Try that and begin building your plot from there. Yeah, know your plot beats, but spend most of your scenes building lore, creating connections between characters, and having fun. And so that means, just having fun with your characters like you would in like a D&D game. How much great world building and how much great lore comes from just your characters interacting because you really know them. And that's the best kind of stuff, not the stuff that's like shoehorned in. Turn it up to 11. Jokes, character moments, subtly will probably be lost here. So make sure to just really, if you're trying to do something, do it. That's one of the best advices or critiques that I got from my manager was, hey, you seem like you're trying to make this joke. Take it further. Like, do another line. Make sure if you're going to do the joke, do it. Like, do it fully. Try to make a scene about one more than one thing is a don't for me. So sometimes that's a little difficult to realize too, because you want to cram everything in there. It's just going to feel confusing. You're going to lose your audience, and it's just not going to be a pleasant experience for them. Every scene should be about one thing. Yeah, you can do a bit of recapping and a bit of side, jokes, but it should be about one thing that so people are not getting lost. And don't forget to recap frequently as well for the previous reasons that I laid out. Additional tips, every scene should progress naturally from the previous, because despite rule, I'm sure you guys have heard about this, your next scene shouldn't just be, and then this happened. Oh, okay. It should be because this happened, or despite this happened, then this happened. Don't use movies as story inspiration. Use long-running shows or soap operas if you're working on a live service game like this. And you don't need more assets. It's better to spend more time on fewer characters. Trust us. So I do actually have to give it over to Shelby now. We're running a little low on time, but I'm going to pop up her video. Okay. Back to here.
Hi, I'm Shelby Moledina. I'm really sorry I couldn't be there in person. I really wanted to be. But thanks to Rose for handling all the in-person stuff. So as Rose said, we worked together on Ashe Cove and had an amazing time and a lot of learnings about what works in really short form in a mobile sense. And I've been in games for about 20 years, mobile focused for the last 10 years. And so I've got a lot of lessons that I've learned and gained from that. And when I decided to go on sabbatical a year ago and to focus on one of my hobbies, filmmaking, I quickly came to understand how much there is in common between writing for short attention spans on mobile games and writing for short attention spans on short form videos like TikTok series or these real shorts and vertical types of dramas that are coming. So wanted to kind of share how that crossover happens, because really, like any area of creativity in your life can always influence and inform another area in unexpected ways, which can be fun. Like I said, I've been in games about 20 years and I've shipped over 30 games. I started working on short films about a year and a half ago, and I started by looking around and saying, like, what do I have? What's the easiest thing to shoot? And it is my home office where I legitimately was doing game dev remotely with a team. So my first series started working on is called Shipped, and it was about a indie game dev studio, small team, and what they go through in making games. And honestly, making games is like an infinite well of stories that I could tell. And another one I wrote and directed was Rest and Pitch Face, which is about the friction that women face in fundraising for games and how only 2% of VC money in 2023 went to women founders, and it hasn't gotten any better. And I realized how much crossover there is in storytelling for short attention spans on games and short attention spans on film. A lot of film that's short form is really informed by TikTok scroll habits and how you have about 1 second to grab their attention. And in fact, it has more in common with mobile games than it does with feature film making in many ways. Feature films can take 10 minutes, 40 minutes to build their story and get you invested. So what if mobile games and soap operas had a baby? You would get this short form narrative art form that is tiny little videos, 1 to 2 minutes, possibly shorter, that are consumed by primarily mobile users in a feed scrolling on TikTok or in an app like Reel Shorts. And I'm going to talk about some examples on what this really is. So often it's called the vertical short drama or vertical series, micro series. They are mobile first, they're created vertically, they're not created horizontally and then turned into portrait mode. They are shot in portrait mode. They're short format, they're fast-paced, high drama storytelling, and there's an emphasis on visual storytelling, not a lot of talking head stuff. You've got to show it, and you have very little time to do it. Very similar to games. And they've also got to have a cheap and quick content pipeline, which is also very similar to games. You got to be able to do live operations at a scale and cost that is the same in live operations, and that's true for these types of films as well. They were first popularized in Asia, and they're becoming more and more common here. So here's some examples. This is on an app called Real Short. There's also Drama Box. There are other apps that do this. They serve tons and tons and tons of short dramatic series with hundreds of episodes. They give you the first episode for free, and then you can buy them with microtransactions or a subscription after that. You can tell what they think you're going to search for. That suggested search is accidental triplets with a billionaire. Pretty self-explanatory there. And here's another type of vertical series, which is more of a creator-made, less about mass production, but about sort of personal connection. And this is an example of one I'm going to show you called Hobby Horse Girls. It's made by a very small team of filmmakers, and it's really funny. It's free. Some TikTok series are subscription-based, but lots and lots in common with mobile games. So if you want to make a vertical series, the doom scroll is your biggest enemy. The people scrolling through a feed who are seeing the first frame of a film or a video and deciding whether they want to stop and give it another few seconds or if they want to scroll on. You got to grab the eyeballs, make that very first frame interesting, and you got to keep the eyeballs, which is making stakes very high and clear. Turning stories up to 11, as Rose mentioned on games. We want to be high drama, leave people wanting more and more and more. No time to slow burn, get into a story. So we're going to show one, and this would be a good time for Rose to play the video. So I'm going to pause here and let her do that.
How long ago did you get into competitive hobby horsing?
How long ago did I get into it? How long ago was I born?
Will you be competing in regionals?
Yes, we'll be competing at regionals in a big.
I hope you all agree that was a masterpiece of our generation, and I want to go through quickly why this works. So the very initial imagery, the very first frame of this video has this crazy image of a girl who is jumping on a hobby horse over a bar. You're like, what is that? Like, you don't get 3 seconds in to find out what's going on. You know it right away. And she does this sort of like crazy pose and facial expression, like you know there's something here, and that really grabs you. Okay, so now the viewer has stopped the scroll. They're watching it play for a second or two. You're at about the second, or maybe the fourth, and it is immediately giving you really recognizable, amped up characters. Visual storytelling is extremely important. Subtlety is your enemy. This is true of the verticals on things like Real Short, and here you've really got to get people invested in 4 seconds, and that is not long. It's very similar to you getting like 40 characters on a game. You got to pack it all in. You got to link them about visual storytelling in the background and the foreground. This is very similar to games where you can consider every single piece of your game as part of your storytelling. The UI, the background, the effects, the tutorial, the character expressions, every single part of it should be part of your storytelling. Then you've got around, the viewer is now in, they're interested. They're like, okay, what is this wackiness? I want to watch more. They're about 18 seconds in, and by then, this show has already given you a roadmap for this episode and the entire series. They ask her, will you be competing in regionals? And she says, yes, I will be competing at regionals in a big way. And it makes it very clear that she is training to go to regionals, and she's going to be encountering a lot of obstacles on the way to that. And she's going to be funny while doing it. So at 15 seconds, you are convincing people now, okay, you've done 15 seconds, you want to watch the rest of it. And this is exactly what we have to do in the games. At every single tap, we have to keep convincing them they want to put in more time and more time and more time. And you have to be really mindful of that. Okay, step 4. You get to the end of the episode. And I'm going to stop here again and play the ending of this episode number 1.
Clover's last injury did her in.
We heard that she made a full recovery and competing in regionals.
So sorry, a little bit.
Okay, so we've been introduced to her antagonist, and she's obviously very unhappy. There's going to be a lot of drama in the series, and hopefully this makes the viewer want to binge them and go from episode 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, and every single one is such a short amount of time investment that they are willing to do that. I want you to never underestimate cliffhanger endings. This is true. You want to put them at every end of every episode. You want to do it at a small level with quests in games. You want to do it at a large level with big seasons or chapters in games. You want to make sure that at the end of every session, you have a reason for the player to come back. And that is not necessarily all on the story, but the story and the gameplay systems need to work together to create these goal-setting systems to get you to come back, to create session behavior, to create this habit of play in your game and in the video. I'm going to pass it back to Rose. And I really wish that I got to be there in person with you, but at the end of this presentation, there's a QR code with a link to my LinkedIn page, and I'd be happy if you wanted to connect, to send me messages. I'd love to chat about this and any other topics about game dev, films. I love it. Okay, thanks.
Okay, guys, we're over time. I'll leave you with both of our QR codes. But please do connect and ask questions outside of the room. Sorry we went over time, just so much to talk about. But thank you for coming.